we're recording.
Happy Thursday.
Hey, yeah, it's Thursday today. It's been Thursday all day today. And apparently tomorrow is going to be Friday, which is going to be Valentine's Day. For those
Didn't that just happen last week?
No.
Friday after Thursday?
It was.
Oh, yeah, that part did. I
Yeah.
think
But
that's
it's Valentine's Day Eve.
That's been repetitive, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Get your chocolate and flowers today.
yeah.
Save a lot of money.
Well, normally we
Or Saturday. Save a lot of money.
yeah, you can save. You can save.
50%
Buy your
off.
roses tomorrow or Saturday. Yeah.
So, Jim, what are you drinking there?
Yeah, so this is good. So tonight we are doing bourbon in the first, and we don't have a guest scheduled tonight. We've got a bunch of guests coming. I tell you what, there's been a lot of people who would like to get on our podcast, and one of the people we've been waiting to get on has been Tanya Hetler, and she's. I think she's good to
She's
go.
coming.
And
Yep.
we're going to try to get her in next week, and that's going to be pretty extensive. We're going to be talking about education, and we've been waiting to do that. I did see Brian Prettyman, Senator downstate, and he's anxious. Hey, when can I come on? And so he's looking to come on. And so we have a number of other people looking to come on. So
I was talking to a small business owner.
yeah,
She wants to come on. You have another guy who's a entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. He wants to come on.
yeah.
So we're just getting these guys scheduled.
What cereal does he use?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I
Cheers.
think it's Raisin Bran.
Raisin Bran. So bourbon in the first. So tonight, what we're doing is we're featuring High West Campfire Bourbon. It is it's an interesting blend of rye whiskey, straight bourbon whiskey, and blended malt Scotch whiskey. And Tim, you gifted this to me. I appreciate that, and so we're going to try that. So
It
High
tastes
West.
like a campfire.
It
Does it?
does. Yeah, it's a little smoky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
got a
want-
little smoky flavor.
Leaving it up here, is that good?
Yeah. Can you zoom on that? Because I noticed.
I mean, we can, but then I gotta like pick up the
And you gotta
remote and
move
do
things.
things.
Best,
Yeah.
best thing to have with
You can see it
a little
pretty well
bourbon
there. Yeah.
is some potato chips.
Potatoes are the most
Local.
versatile starch.
Yeah.
I think.
Local. What's
That
that?
exists.
Local. Hey, actually, I'll tell you what really goes very well with bourbon, but we haven't had dinner yet. So, dark chocolate goes very well with bourbon. And I like to say that I have become an ambassador for the bourbon industry. And a lot of people don't know how to drink bourbon. And you have to acquire the taste, and you have to get your mouth acclimated to it. And I've taught some people how to drink bourbon who say, I don't like bourbon. And once they get their mouth acclimated to it, and then they taste it, and after about the third sip, when you get into that fourth sip, they start to rise. There's some really good flavor in here, and it doesn't burn anymore. The burn's going to be in that. I mean, for us or for me, there's no burn anymore. I'm used to it, but for people who are not, that first two sips, you'll get that burn, and they never get past the burn. I don't like it. But once you get past the burn, there's some great flavor in there. You picked up right away. It's kind of like a smoky flavor to it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know,
I used to call it turpentine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm,
I
But
was
you know,
not
you
a
get
I'm
liquor
still
fan,
trying to
but
get past the burn.
You're trying.
Well,
You still got past
it's
the burn.
it's weird because once you hit a certain age, you realize that beer and even not even wine, but just beers, you get a lot of calories with the beers, and
yeah.
it takes a lot to burn those calories off. But when you have a harder liquor,
Yeah.
let's say bourbon or
Less-
whiskey,
Less calories. The worst part about drinking like a whiskey or a bourbon with the calories is the soda. Don't drink the soda, man.
oh yeah,
Just go straight bourbon or straight whiskey, but you got to sip it. But the other flavor you get, because it's a combination of Scotch, right? So that's Scotch.
yep.
Because it's peat, right? You get a little different flavor with the Scotch, and so that's some of that in here. But yeah, this is really good. So, but anyway, once people get past the burn, they really start to understand there's some great flavor in there, and it actually gets kind of sweet. And if you take dark chocolate and you take a little bit of dark chocolate and you put it in your mouth, just let it melt a little bit, and take a sip of this, I'm telling you what, man, it is a wonderful flavor.
So where's the chocolate?
Yeah, I didn't bring any.
Ah,
I mean, you know,
I'm out.
I'm buying mine on Saturday.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Following your suggestion. So anyway, we don't have a guest tonight, and we thought what we would do is kind of wrap up a number of different things. There's so many different fascinating topics that are going on. However, they're all repetitive themes. And we thought we would just kind of tonight, like I always say, the fun about doing the podcast is it's just a couple of guys sitting around at a bar having a drink and talking, right?
Sure.
So this is what we're doing. And the other beauty of bourbon is it's a conversation drink. It's not something you just shovel down. It is something that you sip and talk, and it's a great conversation drink. A lot of my friends of mine that love bourbon are military people, sitting around in the officers club and having some bourbon and kind of doing the old BS. So we're going to do a little talk tonight, and we'll hit some fascinating topics. A couple things I do want to mention before we go on is promote the podcast. The more people see this, and everybody that I talk to that sees it said it is great. To be expected because we're so good. But
Jim does work out, a little intimidating,
Yeah,
like our podcast, right? Tell me you like it.
yeah,
Right, that's the,
but if you like it, please pass it on to people. We really appreciate that. Secondly, we could use any donations into the to help pay. We have some additional things we'd like to do, and we don't have any advertising money yet. So if you want to advertise and you have a business, that'd be great. So
or even it could be interesting if people pay us to talk about something that's important to them. There's an idea.
wow,
Yeah.
really?
Like if you've
Interesting.
got
You
a
make a living at that?
We'll cover your topic, not necessarily your position on
yeah,
it.
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, that's not a horrible idea. Like
Yeah,
if you have
so-
a suggestion for something that you want to talk about,
Yeah.
and you want to make a little donation to go along with that, that would definitely help get it up on the priority list.
It would.
There is some equipment needs, and yeah,
And some of the
Absolutely.
comments that I've heard people say is that, man, I tell you what, you guys get into some really, really good, deep topics, and we spend time. This is not a 60-second commercial, right? I mean, we really focus a lot on the depth of the issues, with the thinking that most people don't know it.
and there's really no other way. You have to take the time to go through all the points of views, understand why some people think about it in one direction, why others think about it another way, and try to get some facts and some evidence out there to support either way. And then
I think it's also we're trying to get to what the root is of these different topics,
Right.
and not just be like spouting, hey, I heard something on Twitter, I heard something, or X. Yeah, I saw something on Facebook, or somebody in the grocery store line said something, and we just repeat it. Now we're trying to understand, like, well, why is that? Why is that topic in the news? What's going on with that? Yeah.
So, but that's our goal. Usually I'll do a little, hey, here's where we're at, other than it's, Thursday, which we kind of beat that pretty good. So the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So if you're an Eagles fan, you'll be very excited, and they won it very convincingly. So obviously we're in the Philadelphia area, so there's a ton of Eagles fans. So hey, go Eagles, right?
Ooh,
All
go
right.
Birds.
Congratulations.
Tomorrow's the parade.
Tomorrow's the parade. That's right.
I didn't watch a single minute of it.
Oh man, I did.
Wow.
I was with a bunch of Eagles fans. They were very happy.
I was driving on I-95 trying to listen to it. My wife was like, hey, watch this. And I'm like, nah, maybe not while I'm driving.
If you're driving, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Good
I was
idea.
working on the new house, so
Yeah. Rob's got a new house. Got
There
a
you go.
mansion. Got a mansion down in Townsend. So,
I think it's smaller than the one I'm currently in, like less square footage, but
micro
got more land. So
I think Farmette would
yeah,
probably
farmette.
be better than.
Yeah, well, that's true because he has acreage. Yeah, he's a farmette. The other big news is Trump, and we're going to get into that initially, and then we're going to go into more local stuff. President Trump has had Tulsi Gabbard has been confirmed by the Senate as
Yesterday,
Director of Intelligence, which is fantastic. I'm a huge Tulsi fan. Even though she came from a more liberal background, I think in their heart there's many very, very, very solid MAGA positions that she has taken. And I am telling you right now, mark it on your calendar, all right? February the 13th of 2025, Tulsi Gabbard will be the first female president. So mark it down.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, now that she's DNI, because that gives her a great exposure. And you know, a lot of our presidents have either come from the CIA or intelligence. I mean, there's a variety. She's a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. I am such a fan of hers. Very articulate and well spoken. So I was actually pushing for her to be Trump's running mate because I was thinking this coalition thing. Well, Trump did better than I would have done because he picked Vance, and Vance has been great. But then he brought in Tulsi, and he brought in Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Do you remember when he picked Vance? Like I remember when that. I'm like, who the hell
do.
is this guy? And
I was at the convention. I was in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was, who is this guy? Like, and I'm like, oh boy, I hope that wasn't a misstep. And
no,
it has not. It has proved not to be. Like,
I knew him, and you know the knock was he was not a Trump fan at the beginning.
Yeah.
He said he thought Trump was crazy.
He just gave that this week, I think, his speech in France.
He did a wonderful speech, very articulate, fantastic. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Today.
Just approved.
Today got confirmed, and this whole MAGA.
Vance had to fly back from France to cast the deciding vote.
No, he didn't have to cast a vote.
He didn't? I thought as of yesterday they were saying that he.
No, it was.
Sorry, I've been busy working on a house.
It was 52. All Republicans voted for Kennedy, and all Democrats voted against. And then you had Mitch McConnell, who no longer is a Republican, who voted against Kennedy. So he's voted against all of the Trump picks.
He is on paper. But
Well, hold on, because I missed this today then. Because yesterday I thought that there had to be a tiebreaker vote.
yeah, I think they were predicting that it was
They
going
thought
to
it was
be
gonna be close.
a fitty-fitty.
Yeah, a couple Murkowski.
And it didn't turn out that way?
No,
Okay.
Murkowski came out and she said she was going to support him.
Okay.
So, and then Collins supported because those are the other two that you're not quite sure if they're Republican or not. So, but anyway, I'm really looking forward to having him. And there's a guy that I've been following. I love podcasts, and Joe Rogan's obviously good, but Ryan.
Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan is one of the people who I really follow a lot, and he got a guy on there, like Gary Brecka, who is a biologist, fascinating, talking about the crappy foods that we eat and a lot of our problems, mental problems too, because the mind is associated with the gut, and you got to have a healthy gut, and he's very much along the line of a Robert. I don't know if he ever said he really wanted to see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. selected, but he's of that mindset that we got to get rid of the crap that's in our food, and we have to go to more whole foods. And he talks about his reasons as to why we should do that. He made a very good living working for insurance companies, essentially predicting when people would die to help the insurance company determine whether they should insure these people, and if they should, for how much. And so he suddenly realized that he could probably do a better job because he can extend people's lives, but was prevented from doing that. He would probably do a better job if he left that and started his own business, which is what he does now. And so he's very much into the whole foods and a lot of nutrients, etc.
Do they call that actuarial science in the insurance industry for life insurance as
Well, I
well?
was going to say there's actuarial tables.
Yeah, okay.
Which are,
I wasn't sure if that term applied to anything other than.
His process was a little
Financial
different.
risk.
He didn't look at it like a statistical. If you live in Delaware, and he really looked at your personal habits and blood work, and he could pretty much determine when somebody was going to die.
interesting.
Yeah, very fascinating. Sean Ryan podcast. I would after you follow us religiously, I would go to him because Sean's got a lot of great people on. So, but anyway, so Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now is the Secretary of HHS, and this is really great. Now we're still waiting for Kash Patel to come in, but a lot of the picks have been in there. So, I don't know, a little bit of news. There may be. The Trump administration is looking to make cartels terrorist organizations, which gives them a little more flexibility with how they would deal with it, including utilizing the military.
Didn't they already designate that?
I think they're
Trende
still.
or Ragua, I think, or some specific ones.
Yeah, I think they're still in the process of naming all the different cartel groups.
Okay. But I think there was an EO that was like
Yeah.
setting that direction.
So clearly.
Yeah.
There's
Which I applaud.
Yeah,
Let me be
absolutely.
really clear.
totally.
Oh yeah, and there's been.
Which
I
is-
think it was on Rogan.
And maybe not so much about me, but it's like for everybody, this is actually a really good thing to keep America safe, to help
It is.
improve crime here.
That
at reduced drugs. This
Yeah,
is
the
a
idea is-
fantastic approach.
Once you designate them as a terrorist organization, you can now assign tier 1 operatives
Yes,
to
correct.
combat them. Which
That is correct.
it's other guests on other podcasts. I think Brogan I was listening to. They're like, if I was in a drug cartel right now, I'd just retire. That'd be it. Just cash out, buy a boat, just do something else because you do not want these people coming after you.
No, you
So,
don't. So the question is going to be, how much is Mexico cooperating? Apparently, we are already have surveillance. I think essentially we're targeting, and so the feeling is there's going to be military action against the cartels. Now, if that happens, you got to understand the cartels in every single state, everywhere. They're there, and that could create some problems. But this is something that has to be done. Most people associate the cartel with drug trade. The cartel is one of the biggest human trafficking organizations in the world, and that's where the money is. And if you ever saw the Sound of Freedom, I suggest you get that movie. But get ready, and have a box of tissues. Very, very powerful movie.
and we've seen recently with Israel's attack or battle against Hamas as well as Hezbollah, and there are a lot of invisible battle space tactics that can be applied, with electronic warfare, just tracking and dealing with these people. So, if there's a fear out there or some ideology that the cartels are huge, they're so powerful, they're well funded, we can't do anything about that. Bullshit. We got them.
Well, we can do
just had to
stuff about it,
focus.
but even about the whole well-funded thing, that all comes from the open border.
It does.
I mean, they're making billions of dollars on trafficking people across the border.
Yeah.
Sure, but
Right.
they're not
And so-
invincible.
Right.
They're
Oh,
not.
that's correct. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
more another reason of how these issues that we talk about are all tied together, right? So you close the border, now people can't cross. Now the cartels can't make money. Then they get desperate. They are easier to target and take down.
And
They should retire.
And the key is that nobody wanted to take the bold move of fighting them, and President Trump is doing it.
It's going to be bloody.
No, it's going to be bloody. It will be bloody. There's no doubt about it.
And worth
and no one wanted to take that challenge on. But you have
Short-term
to do
pain,
it.
long-term
Short-term
gain.
gain, right?
Yep.
Right. So short-term pain, long-term gain. It has to be done, which then goes into where we're going to start to move. President Trump has been dismantling the deep state, along with Elon Musk, at a ferocious rate.
Nobody elected him.
That's correct.
Nobody elected
unelected
him.
Elon.
Yeah, unelected. George Soros is unelected. You know who was unelected? I'll tell you who was unelected. It was the people who ran the Biden administration, because all the information is coming out. Another Sean Ryan podcast was he had a former fundraiser for the Democrats, former fundraiser for Joe Biden, who she still says, personally, I really like Joe Biden. She has come out and named names that his cognitive problems were very serious, and it became 2022 when she realized just how bad it was. And so Sean said, well, who was running the White House? And she named the names. They were unelected people serving as president of the United States. I really don't want to hear about Elon Musk.
I mean, Elon, come on. Trump at every campaign and all the videos, like,
campaigned again.
vote for me. I'm bringing Elon in. We're going to, we've got a
Yeah.
team put together. We're going to look into this waste, abuse, and fraud.
Which goes to a very interesting point. I follow Rasmussen polling. They seem to be very, very good at it. Rasmussen came out with a little snippet of some of their polling. 70% of the American public, I can't remember the exact breakdown, either strongly agree or agree, but total of 70% of the American public said that President Trump is doing exactly what he campaigned on, at least if not more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 63% of those said, and we like it. 63%. And he's got a 53% approval rating. So Trump ran on this. He's delivering even more than what many people expected. He's delivering on that promise, with the Democrats fighting it tooth and nail in every way they can.
So I saw an interesting thing on CNN, right? Try to look at different news outlets and all that. So Trump has been president for 24 days. He has a net positive approval rating for 21 days.
Yeah.
21 out of 24. And you go, okay, that's a pretty good track record. It's like, I don't know, what, 90% almost?
Yeah.
Right? In his entire first term, he had 11 days.
Yeah. It's incredible what he has done.
11 days out of 4 years.
But-
But so far, we're 21 out of 24 days.
And so when Trump talks about the deep state, and he's going to dismantle the deep state, and like, what is the deep state? There's a lot of questions about who that deep state is. Certainly, there are very, very powerful money people who have gained tremendously from the structure that it is now. But that deep state is your entrenched bureaucrats and government employees, unelected, who felt as if they're there and the change of administrations doesn't matter to them. They'll just ride it out and just do what they want to do.
And what they want to do normally aligns with a specific ideology
It does.
or a way to enrich themselves.
Correct.
I was going to say personal gain in many of these, right?
Personal gain either
gain
through
and an
their ideology advancement or financial.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that all federal government employees are bad. I'm not, but I'm just saying that overall, the structure that was there, they felt they could do what they want, and they were certainly not going to listen to the President of the United States because they felt they were untouchable. And they were defended, not just Democrats, by the way, but heavily by Democrats. They were defended, so they felt like, we don't care. You can't touch us.
And once they made it to retirement, the retirement paperwork was, stored in a limestone vault beneath the
Limestone vault.
surface of the earth.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
Iron
couldn't
Mountain. Iron
only
Mountain.
10,000 a day or a month. 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like helping businesses improve and improving processes and all that, right? And so
idea.
you look for bottlenecks, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
what's slowing you
The
down?
elevator.
What holds you back? And it's like what limits the number of people to retire is the elevator that goes down into a limestone mine
Yeah.
50 miles north of Pittsburgh.
Right.
So
How
your
come I can't
retirement's
retire?
secure.
We don't have room on an elevator.
Yeah.
Your
In
paperwork
Western
physically
Pennsylvania.
can't make it to the vault.
Yeah, start looking to that.
Yeah.
So what has
That's just
happened is
crazy.
that Trump has come through and he has shut down the USAID. It is not aid.
I have loved
Agency for International Development.
I have loved all the videos coming out about people being so upset with Trump that, now we're never going to know how much wood a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck a wood. Have you seen these videos just nonstop?
Yeah,
right.
they're out there.
Just long rants about, I'm losing my job. I didn't vote for this.
No, I'd say to bring it home here to Delaware, what's been really interesting is our own Senator, Chris Coons.
Yeah.
He is out in front talking about why it's such a bad thing to shut down USAID.
Right.
But we haven't yet come up with a good program that is valuable to U.S. taxpayers, that is bringing value to us.
1 in 20 maybe it actually had some feel good
I'll
aspect
say
to it.
conceptually,
Sure.
but he hasn't articulated
Yeah.
a single one yet. I think his biggest example was Sesame Street to kids in Iraq.
That was huge. And boy, how critical is that?
We got to win the hearts and minds because that strategy has worked so well.
Yeah. So it works so well.
You win the hearts and minds with Sesame Street.
But some of the programs that have been exposed that we have been funding. Number one, all the major news organizations were paid huge money from this to promote liberal ideology. Well, they're no longer a news organization.
Well, how were they paid? Subscriptions, right? So
yeah, a lot of subscriptions. They were, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So a lot of money there. Some of the crazy programs that have been out there, and the Trump's press secretary, I tell you what, man, she's good. She's really good, and she came yesterday with a list of them because people were complaining, and she kind of rattled off that list. It's amazing what's going on.
it's only $80 billion.
Yeah,
guys.
the
It's
crazy.
great. I bring receipts.
I
Like,
bring
You want
receipts.
receipts? I've brought the receipts.
And she brought the receipts, and so that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is just the rampant corruption. FEMA has really taken a lot of hit because of the problems there. Western North Carolina was decimated, and nothing.
Back in what, September?
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
and
we're
they were
4,
for-
5, 6
People are
months ago.
living through the winter
Yeah,
in tents. still.
They were forgotten. I kept on saying that's where the forgotten man is.
No, they weren't forgotten. They were ignored.
They were all right. I didn't ignore it, but they yeah.
I was going to say go even further back. Go to Maui.
Maui,
right?
yeah.
North Carolina is, I guess lucky that they're this close relatively.
Yeah.
Maui's, whatever,
Well, Maui, I think
7 time zones away.
there was a specific strategy at play there. Just wait these people out. They'll eventually go away. We can take that very prime real estate, develop it, make lots of money. So there were groups of people that had a financial interest into not helping the people that lost their homes there.
Right? But
Tremendous.
you come back to FEMA, and it's like, is FEMA doing what they were set up to do?
Is that neo-mercantilism, the idea that you leverage government to
You're using a lot
affect
of
the
big
market?
words
Yeah, sorry.
Big wow.
I read a book. It was How Capitalism Saved America. Great book. You should. I don't have it pulled up here.
I read a book once, but I don't know where.
Gotta find that one.
I don't know where my Marvel comic book went. But anyway, so that's been very interesting to see all of this that's been transpiring, and the Democrats are fighting it. They're fighting it. They're fighting it. They're fighting it, and they are using their radical judges. They're using lawfare to come out. So the American people. Trump said, I'm going to do this. The American people said, we want you to do it. We voted for you to do it. He gets in. He does it. The American people say, we're glad you're doing it. All of that stopped because some judge somewhere in a very liberal state can suddenly say, oh, the president can't do that. So the president has no authority over his own workforce. The president has no authority to stop these programs. The president is the executive. They work as part of the administrative branch, the executive branch of government. And the courts are saying you don't have the authority to do that. And this is where it's crazy. And people are saying it's a constitutional crisis. It's not a constitutional crisis that Trump's doing it. It's a constitutional crisis that a district court judge can stop the will of the people. And that's what's going on. And eventually it's going to have to get to the Supreme Court.
And that's where I think I'm glad they did it. I'm glad that more of this corruption is being exposed because that's really what it's coming down to. And I don't know if it's corruption or hubris on the part of the judges, trying to use their position to force their ideology versus the will of the American people. But with the speed of what the Trump administration is doing, it's every day is something new, something new. We're exposing each different government agencies financial mishaps, and then they're moving on into other areas as well. But
they're kind of like ripping it open. We're getting a view because
work.
It's just so, I don't know, corrupt.
Yeah.
So
corrupt.
wrong.
So,
right? and they move on to ripping open the next one while a team comes in and says, okay, well, let's dig into the one we ripped open
and so
yesterday.
the light's been shining in. Right. Now we've got judges fighting things, so it's going to be a long battle, and it's not going to heal overnight. It took a lot of work here. Decades for all this to get built and put into position. And I think this is the way that we prevent it from, let's say in 4 years Trump doesn't, or the Democrats retake control and start trying to undo a lot of this stuff by doing it through the court. And if we do reach a Supreme Court with these decisions to take some of this stuff apart, it's going to be really, really hard to re-implement again. Because now at least our generation is aware of what happened. We're going to figure out how we got there and put monitors in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that is a process. You can't just it's great coming in, signing executive orders and exposing the light on it. But now we need to put all of this in concrete, chisel it in marble so that this is bad. This happening is bad. This is how we got there. Here's the laws to prevent it from happening again.
So you say, maybe it's corruption, maybe it's not. Elizabeth Warren was a professor and then a United States senator. She's worth $32 million. How did she become so rich? Because I know what professors make, and I know what senators make.
So most people believe that they're good people, even though when you shine a light on a lot of their actions, you might be able to make the case that, hey, these things that you've done are not what good people do. But we all believe, that we're good people. I don't believe that she believes that she's done anything wrong. She's worked within the system to amass her wealth, and if some of the areas were gray, it's not wrong, and a lot of the politicians, I believe, feel that way. So do I think they're evil or that they're bad? No, I just think that they were working in a system that was not structured to prevent that sort of abuse.
Well, I've dealt with a lot of criminals who felt that they were perfectly fine at what they did.
Sure.
So, great story, Pollyanna. But okay, fine. maybe she didn't feel that it was improper for her to make millions and millions and millions of dollars.
No, I'm not saying we shouldn't investigate every single penny.
Well, there's going to be an investigation. So
Every single penny we need to look at. And if she broke the law on any of them, she needs to be held accountable, just like you should, or Chris should, or I should. If I've done something illegal, it needs to be brought to light, and it needs to be managed accordingly.
Yeah. The other big piece of news is Trump had a very good call with Putin and a very good call with Zelensky, and as he promised, they're going to be working on a peace deal in Ukraine, and that would be fantastic. Possibly they will be going to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia serves as the host to get this more ironed out. So that's good. But
Yeah.
So
anyway.
I don't think Biden talked to Putin the entire time,
No, he didn't.
right?
No, not at all. So, but a lot of different issues, and again, the obstruction that the Democrats are doing, raising all these fears because all of their programs are coming to an end. They use the federal government as their own capability of enriching, if not themselves financially, enriching themselves politically. And so now let's talk about Delaware. So. Delaware has become one of the most bluest states in the country. And that's a process that's taken a while to occur. Delaware used to be certainly a purple state. Delaware used to be considered the bellwether state that how Delaware goes, so goes the nation. For years, if whoever the state of Delaware voted on for president, that would be the president. They seemed to have a very good pulse of how the nation was, and that is no longer the case. And what has happened, the reason why, in my opinion, Delaware has become so radical is because the Republican Party has suffered 20-some years of abuse, and you're not going to turn that ship overnight. And so the radicals that have come in, quite frankly, communists that have come in, they primary Democrat candidates because no one votes in a primary. These radical people get elected. And the Republicans don't have a significant opposition because for 20-some years they haven't been a very, very strong force. And people right now are doing Einstein's bidding, which is you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result, which Einstein defined as insanity. They continue to vote Democrat without having any clue, any idea what's going on. And the state has been going downhill like crazy, and we've become extremely radical. I call us the California of the East, except that probably in 2026, California would be more conservative than Delaware.
Well, so Jim, let's double click on that idea here and explain it, I think, a little bit better for folks. Traditionally, there's been the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and they compete all over, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is happening here in Delaware is you have the Democratic Party, and then you have other parties. Mm-hmm. And those other parties, those other entities, players, whoever, are bringing in candidates under the umbrella of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But they are much more radical, much further to the left.
Correct.
And in a primary, where typically there's very low voter turnout from any party, you get these radical candidates to get a machine behind them. Mm-hmm. They gin up the necessary amount of votes, and now you start to bring the Democratic Party further and further left.
Yeah,
at least here in Delaware.
At least here in Delaware, and
right.
some of the organizations are national organizations who come in and throw a lot of money down.
Yeah.
Into this, and I have back in the old days. When this was this competitive aspect, right, Republicans and Democrats, and no one side had the strong advantage. It was a give and take. That was the best form of government because there had to be compromise in order to get things done.
Yeah, right? That's the way our founders intended it.
It's exactly how it was intended. And so there were many Democrats, elected Democrats, who I get along with very well. And
we have one of your friends in here, episode 4.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Senator Hansen.
So Senator Hansen. Stephanie and I have known each other for 30-some years and have maintained a friendship over all of that, even though we have political differences. But, we respect each other, and that was a great podcast, episode number 4. I would suggest you watch it. But that's not what happens anymore. So many Democrats are very concerned about what's happened to their party because of these radicals that are coming in. And this is where we're at in the state of Delaware. And it is now having a very, very strong deleterious effect, because we have adopted these crazy policies. Probably one of the most noticeable ones was the EV mandate, which you spent a lot of time on, Chris.
Yeah, correct. The EV mandate was actually a mandate coming from an unelected
Correct.
secretary of DENREC.
Correct. Who just made the decision that he was going to do this without legislative approval.
Right.
An unelected bureaucrat.
Right. And so you come back to the conversation, 10 minutes ago. It's like we're talking about people go to the polls and they elect a candidate that is going to fight for their values or stands for their values or their beliefs or, the programs that those people, the voters want to see put in place. And so here you have a secretary of DENREC who's putting this in place. He can't be voted in or out. He's picked by the governor, approved by the legislature, and that's pretty much a rubber stamp. I actually talked to legislators, and they don't know of any appointee in Delaware that's actually not been approved by our legislature. Correct. So going back years and years and years. So that's pretty much the governor nominates them, they're going to be in.
Yeah.
And he comes in, proposes this, goes to public comment, 95% against this.
Strong.
95% of the comments of the voters, of the citizens of Delaware said, we do not want this. And this unelected bureaucrat says, I know better.
Yeah.
You're going to get it.
And we have it. And it's not just the electric vehicle mandate.
That's just a great example that people are going to
It is, but I mean,
hasn't hit yet.
But just that
It's
aspect.
about to.
But just that aspect. It's not just the electric vehicles that are mandated so that every year, starting in 2025, you have to have a continual percentage of vehicles that are sold in Delaware have to be more and more electric vehicle until 2035. 32,
Yeah.
when 100%, you cannot buy a gas-powered vehicle in Delaware in 2032. You're going to have to go somewhere else to do it.
So
Come on, it's better for the environment.
This is going to tie into another topic I'm sure we'll touch on, energy, because right now, hot topic in Delaware, people's energy bills have exploded.
And that's the point I wanted. You're right.
Right.
That's exactly where I was going with
It's the electric company taking advantage of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the mandates that they have put in, it affects gas heat versus electric heat, right? It affects, in some cases, it'll say, well, it calls for a strengthening of how you can protect the home from drafts and things like that. That's fine, no problem. But the big issue is how it is that they're mandating that you have to use electric. You can no longer use any other fuel substance, just electric. And we don't produce electric in Delaware. And the Dave Stevenson interview that we had,
Podcast number 5.
it was a you should go back and take a look at that because that was very powerful. And again, that just scratched the surface. But that's an example of what happens when an unelected bureaucrat comes in and makes the decision, and there's nobody there to stop it.
And then some of these decisions, I might even say most of these decisions, people don't understand in the moment. Like, hey, some guy in Dover said we're going to need to have electric vehicles, sometime down the road.
Right.
No biggie. Things will change between now and then. Well, at least the track record in Delaware is that the policies don't change. They don't get rescinded and undone. So that policy stays in place and the clock is ticking. So then you have less and less time to accommodate or adjust or manage for it, right? So they're saying now, I think it's in about a year and a half, 43% of cars in Delaware need to be electric vehicles, unless something changes.
Unless something
Basically, 43% of new cars sold.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's funny. If you look at the wording in these things, it's like 43% of the cars delivered to Delaware. Right? Or 43% of the cars on a dealer's lot. Like, what if they're selling used cars?
Realistically, what is this going to do? Are people going to buy, or are we going to see 43% of cars on the road electric, or are people just going to go to a different state, buy a car?
Oh, but you can't do that either.
Oh, why is that?
Because the way the law is written is that you can't go and buy a car in out of state and then title it here.
So what is the effect of this going to be?
Well, assuming nothing changes, right, and we just keep marching down this path, the answer will be that car sales will probably plummet, car prices will go way up, And people who are really married to this will, if I really need to have a gas vehicle and I can't get the one I want, or I, absolutely love this gas guzzler that I have, they might move out of state.
Move
I
out
would
of
envision
state, or
that.
at least have an address in another state,
Yep.
something.
Yeah, and so then you're going to run into all of the knock-on effects, right? So, I think the economics of an electric vehicle are pretty decent when it comes to repairs. There's not a lot required, so you're going to have a lot less, a lot fewer repair shops. You won't
Well,
need the gas stations.
Other than the people who actually own the gas-powered vehicles, because I will not get rid of my gas-powered vehicle. So
Well, that's fair. There'll just be fewer of them, right? So you're
I'm just
not
going
going to
to
have as many
continue
shops.
to spend money to maintain it.
But all of this, if we pause for a second and say, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns. Look, we're going to have all this nirvana of so many more electric vehicles, and there's no tailpipe emissions. What people are missing is that they have far higher emissions due to the rubber coming off the tires. Actually, there's been studies about what's called fine particulate, and that usually comes off of tire degradation or out of the fuel, out of the tailpipe. And the fine particulate of electric vehicles are much higher due to the tire degradation. And you can talk to EV owners, and they burn through tires pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then the other factor that's coming into play, and it's just hitting in Pennsylvania, is right now we fund a lot of our roads and infrastructure through taxes on gasoline sales.
We talked about this in episode 4, actually.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did. We
and
did.
so if you have a lot fewer gas-powered vehicles, now you're going to be selling a lot less gas. You bring in less gas tax revenue. You have less money to fund road repairs and new builds. But yet you're still using the roads, conceptually just as much. They just have electric vehicles on them. So now you're going to have to implement taxes on electric vehicles. You're going to have to implement per mile usage charges for everybody.
More toll roads.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's like a whole nother aspect. And by the way, what's happening in Pennsylvania is, I'm not sure what the exact number is that they settled on, but it's about $300. So if you have an EV, now you're going to be paying an annual fee of like $300. And that's sort of like your share instead of paying a couple cents every time you get a gallon of gas.
We haven't even gotten into charging the damn thing.
Yeah.
There's a charging infrastructure, which I thought was fascinating, right? So we get federal money, comes into Delaware, and there was actually press releases about the fact that they were going to use $21 million to build like 7 charging stations downstate.
Yeah. 21 million.
Yeah,
So-
it was mind-blowing. Like, people right now are fighting the idea that, like, if I had to put charging in my house, it might cost me, between electrician and Delmarva and all that, $1,500, $2,500, $3,000, depending, right? And yet the government is spending like $3 million a charger. Like, that's the best usage of our tax money?
Well, that goes back to kind of some of the stuff that's been exposed lately. Like, this is waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yep.
That seems very wasteful spending.
Bingo.
There's much
And-
cheaper ways.
Yeah, and I realize like I'm sort of ranting about this, and I am, so thank you for listening to my TED Talk. But it's like all of this is, we're just trying to show a tiny little sliver of all of these things that the government does, where we make a decision and then that sends us down a path, and we're like, oops, I need to make another decision, and then sends you down another bad path. Oops. And then I need to fund it, and oops, I now got to raise your taxes, and oops,
I think we've identified the problem. It's government getting involved.
It is.
Yeah, well,
and
it
they,
is.
and they
It is.
just keep adding more and more. And like, just pause for a moment and think, what if the government did less?
Yeah.
What if the government didn't actually get involved in that?
So, for the record, I do think Teslas are amazing. If you've driven them, I mean,
I've driven them.
these
Freaking
electric cars
fantastic. They're
are
fun to
amazing,
drive.
and there
Fantastic.
is very
And a Lightning F-150, so it doesn't sound like we're just
That's
Elon
right.
Sure, yeah.
That's right.
I wanted Cybertruck.
Make
They're
Joe
just still
happy.
too
There
much
you go.
money.
Yeah.
But there is a use case for these things.
There is.
and that doesn't apply to everyone.
Correct.
And I get it. What they're trying to do, they're trying to push more people to do this because they believe that traditional fossil fuel powered vehicles are bad for the environment. And there's an argument to be made there too, to where with the current technology of emissions control and the overall cost of and emissions to build the vehicles versus the electric vehicles with the batteries and the waste that comes off it at the end, gas-powered vehicles and electric vehicles are probably rate par with each other. And the electric, to the issues with our power grid. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to push people to do this because they think it's better for the environment. Although it might not be. But in the long run, if we can get some new future energy source that's cleaner and we can find better battery technology, and they think if they force people to adopt this technology, it'll also force innovation in the technology field. I understand what they're doing and the thought process behind it. I just 100% disagree with that
concept.
push. The theoretical concept, because it is still theoretical, and that's the biggest problem. You're going to, in the short term, significantly damage the economy in a state that's already got a very poor economy.
Yeah. And so we started talking about power bills, right? So here we are in almost what I'd say status quo. Like nothing's really changed in terms of our economy or transportation mix or any of that of now, what is it, February of 25 versus January or versus, say, a year ago, right? Yet people are saying that their power bills are going up 3, 4, 5, 7 times just over the last couple months, right? And that's due to a lot of these policies.
It is.
And government stated mandates, government approved rate changes, the fact that they have to go out and buy, what do they call renewable energy credits, RECs. You'll hear that term, RECs. And all of these things are driving your electric bill up right now. And I'll say in the status quo. Sure, January was a little bit colder, right? But you would expect if I use 50% more, my bill should be 50% higher. Like everybody gets that concept, right? But your bills are exploding. Now, what if you fast forward a year or two and now say 2 out of 5 cars on the road are electric and have to pull energy off this same grid? Where are we going to get all of that energy from?
And what's now we got to buy it from out of state.
And even if you don't have an electric vehicle, right? You're on the same grid. And so that grid is now going to have to purchase a lot more energy at a lot higher prices. So just turn on your lights.
Supply and demand apply to the electric grid?
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
So final comment, because we did spend some time on electric vehicles in episode 5, but cheap energy is good for the economy. Expensive energy is bad for the economy.
Yep.
Take a look at Germany, see what happened there. So in the vein of
last point on the Germany part,
yes,
to bring it home.
Yeah.
I was actually hanging with a friend of mine who lives in Germany, and a young woman, she's about 23, 24, and on her own, completely, unprompted, she just started talking about how Germany has decided to go all green on their energy. They went to all solar and all wind. They shut down their nukes.
Yep.
They don't want to mine coal or burn coal. And she was complaining about how expensive life is to try and pay her power bill in her apartment. It's, impacted grants at the university where she's getting a master's degree. Her boyfriend is having trouble getting a job because the industries, the businesses are struggling because of the cost of energy and reliability. And, here's a woman who is saying she used to be very, green, environmentally conscious. And they're like, we need more power and it can't be solar and wind.
Right.
I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. And Germany has always been the economic
powerhouse
engine for Europe. So going on to some other radical things that have been going on, we have spent a little bit of time talking about this. There's been a number of articles about this. There is a website and a Twitter account, Leave Delaware. This was highlighted by Elon Musk.
What are we up to now in terms of membership on
that?
You got it?
I've got the article. I just wanted to refer to this.
I'll look it up.
If you want to take a look at that. This was really highlighted by Elon Musk in the case where the board of directors provided Elon a payout. A stockholder sued, and the court said even though the board provided him the payout, and the board said, look, he made us a lot of money, and we're very fine with this payout. A judge, a radical Chancery Court judge, said, no, you can't do it, and she overruled a company's board of directors to deny that. Elon said, I am leaving Delaware. I am not incorporating in Delaware. In case you don't know, Delaware has always been known as the corporate capital of the world. I can't remember how many Fortune 500 companies are incorporated in here. It has been a significant amount of income that comes into the state. Companies are leaving like crazy, including Zuckerberg, who is now moving Meta from incorporation in Delaware to Texas. Zuckerberg probably recognized as one of the largest liberal, has decided that he does not want to stay in a very blue Delaware. He wants to go to a very red Texas because from a business perspective, it's better for him. Well, this is having an impact. And so there's a number of articles that are out there, and it was very interesting. Nicole Poore, a Democratic senator, and Melissa Minor Brown, who is I think she's the majority leader, both Democrats, they wrote a letter to the editor, which obviously the Delaware Online would publish. And she said, for decades, Delaware has been the gold standard for corporate law in the United States. And the reasons behind this distinction are no accidents. With its robust legal framework, specialized court of chancery, and unparalleled flexibility in corporate governance, Delaware is not just a hub for business, it's a global leader. This is a Democrat writing about this. And the benefits of this system to Delawareans are undeniable. Corporate license fees and associated tax revenues accounted for roughly 33% of Delaware's general revenue in recent years, funding critical programs and services that benefit everyone. This revenue allows us to make meaningful investments in our communities without overly burdening our residents with higher taxes. They talked about how Delaware has traditionally always had some of the lowest property taxes, and there's no sales tax, which is very true. Now, what she did not mention is that Delaware has some of the highest income tax rates in the country. But
real estate transfer taxes.
real estate running
I
the highest-
recently felt that.
You
pinch.
did.
Yeah,
You
I
did.
Yeah.
So she points out this is a problem, and she defines exactly why it's a problem. The problem is it is the radical judges who have been appointed by Democrat governors and approved by a radical Senate that has put activist judges in place, which we're seeing all over the place, why an activist judge can suddenly tell Donald Trump, you don't have any authority as the president, as the executive running to stop transgender surgeries for children.
So I think just it's the ideology of the judges, and we see it. I think on the left, anti-corporate, anti-company, and pro. I don't know, like punish, steal from the rich, give to the poor, and they're applying this ideology towards our major contributors to the economy. So,
Well, the first step is just simply like the judge is deciding based on their ideology and not on a blind view of what the law is, and
Exactly.
especially established precedents.
Right.
Right. That's really the foundation. Like everything that Senator Poore talked about in there about why Delaware is good for business is because we have decades and decades, if not centuries, of corporate law and battles that have been fought and decided and, like decisions made to set precedents so that companies can make an intelligent decision about it's good to incorporate here versus there.
and it's not
they've
screw the consumer. It's no, this is very fair.
Right.
This is how your corporation should be structured. This is what happens when there's disputes in the board or whatnot.
Correct.
It's yes, and years of precedence, and
then
now
you get
that
a
safety
judge
net
who
that
just says, well, I don't
stability.
like that idea.
Yeah, but that fairness doesn't exist anymore. Now,
it's not even fairness. It's that.
actually, I think it is fairness.
I mean, you can call it fairness, but it's the decades of established principle, which is what laws are built on. The entire law industry is now being overturned by activist judges.
Yeah, they are.
And so that creates instability. Companies, the stock market, the economy does not like instability or not knowing.
Right.
So
Unpredictability.
So we'll talk more about that, but that's a significant issue. And just kind of getting the things off of my chest that I wanted to talk about. Chris, you provided this article. Delaware is in the bottom 4 in state recovery from pandemic learning losses. Delaware is
So now shifting to
bottom 4.
education.
Shifting to education, and we're going to. I am so excited to bring Tanya in next week, and I've also been reading Pete Hegseth's book, which is fascinating, on the battle for the American mind, which I shared some of the things with Tanya, and she loves the concepts. But going to education, just a little bit here. Delaware, Governor Carney, Delaware was one of those states that strictly adhered to the Fauci. Whatever you want to call it, it wasn't based on science.
The unelected Fauci?
The unelected Fauci, correct. The unelected Fauci, who the Democrats love and still defend. So Delaware closed, and the masks and all that, closed schools and all that mess. And then when you finally could, we had virtual learning, and then when you can come back in, you had to wear a mask. And, what we've done to our kids And I coach high school baseball, and so I was impacted because I see these kids. I have my own son who was impacted by it, who was a senior in high school, didn't have his senior year in high school essentially. What we did to these kids is just sinful, not based on any type of science, based on Fauci's opinion about it, and Democrat governors like John Carney just embraced it like you can't believe. And so now the study is out. A new report from the Education Recovery Scorecard, compiled by researchers from Harvard and Stanford universities, sheds light on how students in Delaware and across the nation are faring in a recovery from learning disruptions caused by the pandemic. And while some districts have improved, et cetera, right, some good stuff. So recovery by the numbers.
I just showed the graphs too.
Did you?
So
Okay, good. Yeah, if you take a look at it, you'll see it. The state ranks near the bottom of the nation in terms of recovery from pandemic area learning losses, placing 49th in math recovery and 47th in reading recovery. Now remember this, Delaware has already been one of the lowest performing states in the country, but yet we are in the top 5 per capita spending, and we'll spend some more time on that. So these scores are atrocious.
Yeah, in case you're not following all the language and the lingo here, we tend to kick these around because we're a little bit more familiar with it. But it's like there were test scores in 2019, and everybody knows that there were these shutdowns due to COVID in 2020. Test scores tanked, and here we are. I guess this would be testing for 2024, 23 to 24 school year, right? But those test scores 4 years later still are lower than where we were pre-COVID. Like we've lost like 5 years of educational benefit and growth and improvement. Like we're still trying to dig out of a hole.
We are.
And that's just shocking.
It is stunning. And you have to understand what's going on here. On average, Delaware students remain over 4/5 of a grade level behind in both subjects. Attempts Tuesday to reach 3 districts for comment were left unanswered. Delaware's students, families, and educators have worked hard to recover from pandemic learning losses, but the data is very clear. It's a long road ahead. And they specifically talked about 3 school districts that are a full year behind. A full year behind. This is your children's future. You're robbing them of an education. And what do? We continue to vote.
We do more of the same.
So talking about their future, though, so let's conceptualize the impact of this. Okay, well, kids learn a lot of stuff in school. That's not a big deal. And when they go off to college, they'll get to where they need to be, right? Well, we talked about this, I think, with Dave Stevenson as well. If you're a company and you're looking to build a factory, what are some of the things that you look at when you're trying to build that factory?
Mm-hmm.
Tax structure,
okay.
Schools.
Well, why schools?
Workforce.
Do you have
Workforce.
You
You need people
workforce that can support what you're trying to do.
Right, because
And-
you build your factory near where you have workers.
Right. And the other thing is, if you're going to have a major employer, you're going to bring people in. Your employees want to go to that state. They want to be able to send their children to good schools.
And so right now,
And in Delaware, you can send your children to great schools. They're just not going to be public.
yeah, exactly, they'll be private. But right now, our country is trying to bring a lot of manufacturing back in house, but not just like China plastic plates manufacturing, high tech manufacturing. We realized during the pandemic that we are building way too many really important critical things, such as computer chips offshore, and there is a huge push, including with tariffs. Because of that, we're bringing a lot of that back to the United States.
Correct.
Now, companies are going to be investing, foreign companies,
Absolutely.
local companies, investing money into building the infrastructure and the factories and the producing the entire chain of resources needed to bring that manufacturing back. If you're a company and you're looking to build something and you look at Delaware and look at these test scores right now, are you going to want to build a factory anywhere near where this is the sort of labor that's being put out?
And I'll add on to that, which is if you're building a manufacturing site, the other thing is that you're going to look for is cheap energy.
Correct.
Yeah, cheap energy.
Right.
Cheap
And
energy.
Not to go back to that topic,
Not
but
that all these
Right.
pieces are connecting here.
right.
So the long-term impacts of these problems that are happening right now
Yeah.
are going to be felt for decades,
Yep.
absolute decades, because once those factories are built, it's not like, oh, Delaware is better now. Let's pick it up and move it to Delaware. That doesn't happen.
Well, okay, and then I'll take it a different route, which is like I'm a parent saying, my kid's not going to work in manufacturing. They're just like in elementary school. We don't know what they're going to do yet. But when they're a whole year behind their peers, and I'll say peers across the country, a whole year behind in mathematics. And then even if they caught up, our mathematics here in Delaware, like just our skill level is below 45 of the other states, right? It starts to close doors, or it starts to make it a lot harder to walk through doors of different career paths. Like
Yeah,
if they
well-
don't know math.
Well,
And what's funny is, or sad I should say, is if they don't know English, they don't know reading, it makes it harder to learn math. It's like a double whammy. And this is proven. There's podcasts we talked about it, and we can go to the Department of Education website about it. Caesar Rodney has information about it. You can't read. Not only does it hurt you in reading and English, but it also hurts you in math. When you're hurt in both of these things, you start to close down available options for you.
And you're closing down the options for good schools. Your children are a year behind other students who are also competing for these top schools. You know, you went to the Naval Academy, one of the best academic schools you can go to. Imagine
besides
being-
West Point.
It's
I said one of the best. I didn't
Night
say
and
it
day
was the
above West
best, but yeah, I mean, I love the Naval Academy. But anyway,
Go Army.
that's fine.
go Navy.
But what you're doing is you're trying to compete to get into these top schools, but you're a year behind. Your kids are a year behind. That's what's impacting you. Most people have no idea this is going on. And so what do? You go vote. We got a special election coming up on Saturday. There's 2 Senate seats, one in the 5th and one in the 1st, Northern Wilmington.
In the first.
People will just go up and just, hey, I'm going to vote Democrat. Well, who's been running this state? Who sets these policies? Who appoints these judges? Who has more influence over the schools than anybody else? And where is the teachers union, the Delaware State Education Association, solidly liberal and solidly Democrat? But you're going to continue to vote for the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. That's the stuff I wanted to get off my chest. And I am the vice chair of the Delaware Republican Party, so I got to beat that drum. And I'm going to be really, really proud to beat that drum. It's time that people start to wake up and pay attention. That's the stuff I wanted to get off my chest.
Wow.
Damn it.
Excellent.
There is a lot of cause to be angry.
Thank you.
And like I mentioned earlier, I don't think any of this was done maliciously. I don't think anybody wants to see the state of Delaware degraded the way it has been.
They're just stuck
But
in their
clearly,
ideology that doesn't work.
thank you. That it is that simple. What you've been doing and what the voters have been voting for is not working. And I don't think people fully understand the long-term impact of that. As we're seeing at the federal level right now, it takes great upset to kind of stop some of this stuff. And I don't know, what are some things we could do?
We
here
haven't
in
even we
Delaware,
can't
like,
even say stop
immediately?
it, right? All we're doing is exposing it.
Yeah, we're
Expose
just
it.
exposing
Yeah.
it.
Right?
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
it's still going. Even after signing laws,
Yep.
even after exposing it to the public, there were unelected officials who are still sending, what was it, $59 million off to some hotels in New York City,
That's right.
knowing full well.
Not
They've been
hotels in New York
told not to
City.
do
I
it.
think it's owned by a Pakistani company, so it was sent overseas. They were trying to send it.
Oh,
Those
even better.
hotels.
And
Yeah.
by the way, the chief financial officer from FEMA, who, despite President Trump's statement that it should not go, made that payment, she was fired.
Right. Well,
And Christine Noem said, we're taking that money back.
right, and you finally have some accountability, right? But imagine if things hadn't changed, that 59 million would have gone, and the next 59 million, again and again
Yep.
and again, right? But clearly, we're exposing it. It's not stopping. That's going to still require an immense amount of work to actually cause a shift in the culture and the behavior and the attitudes.
And there are a lot of good people that have a lot of good ideas on how to shift some of this stuff, especially in Delaware recently, that ran for election and did not win because voters, I think, when you go into the booth, they're just, well, at least in the northern area up here in Delaware, which kind of drives the whole state because of just the
population
numbers,
density,
the
yeah.
population density up here. But we lost a lot of good elections, or they did, with some ideas that I think could have helped start shifting some of this tide. So that's done and over with, right? We got 2 years now before the next any besides special elections that pop up. So what we need to do is get the message to the current people in office and say, it's not working what you're doing. Throwing more money at education is not the solution. You need to think more and apply different strategies to change at least what we just saw in education. The energy mandates, the electric vehicle mandate, that is going to have a significant impact on our economy here, and it's not going to be good. It's not for the better. So we need to look at that. We need to change that. We need to adjust course in Delaware. It's that simple.
agree.
Yeah. Well, that's the stuff I wanted to get off my chest. I don't know if you guys got anything.
I think it's probably a good place to break. We talked about the economy, we talked about energy, we talked about education, right? Yeah. 3 pretty critical topics that are all we showed intertwined. I hope you can see that. You can go back to other podcasts, and at the same time, we're going to be bringing in more people to talk about these things, right?
Next week, Tanya. Yeah, and that's going to be good.
Yeah, so we've talked about energy in a couple podcasts. We've talked about the economy in a couple podcasts. We have some other, small business owner and entrepreneurs coming in, so they'll give their perspective on the economy. And
we should bring somebody in for crime.
Yeah. Well, and then the other hot topic again is education. So we'll have Dr. Hetler in here, and there's been some discussion around some others. Yep. We want to hear different perspectives and points of view and all that. But I mean, I'd say my takeaway is we can't just keep continuing to do more of the same and throwing money at it and keeping our fingers crossed tight.
Yeah, exactly.
So new faces and ideas and directions brought to the table.
Yeah, new faces, ideas, or it's not unheard of to shift, your thoughts or your process. We tried some stuff; it's not working. Let's shift fire. Let's change what we're doing. Make some significant changes in our education, economy, energy, and see where that goes. Yeah. Let's try something different. You can't make it any worse.
No.
So
I agree. Great place to end.
Yep.
With some bourbon and potato chips.
High West Campfire. What do you guys think?
Well, it's a little watered down now, but
yeah, a little watered down, but not bad, huh?
No.
Hey,
cheers. Thanks for sticking it out in the first.
Bourbon in the first.
Next time.
Thank you, everybody. That was fun.